Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The House on Nowhere Street. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. A place that shouldn't exist. It started with a flyer that shouldn't have been there. I was walking home from a miserable apartment showing, drenched in sweat and frustration. Another listing that claimed secluded, but meant backed up to a freeway. I was ready to give up and sign another 6-month lease in my crumbling studio when I saw it, just a torn sheet of paper fluttering against the mailbox pole at the end of my street. For sale, cozy 2BR home, move-in ready, quiet neighborhood, affordable. Call Miriam, 314-555-0971. No address, no price. Just a phone number and the word quiet written in red ink, underlined 3 times. I normally ignore stuff like that, but something about the way it hung, like it hadn't been taped, just placed there by hand, felt deliberate, almost like it was meant for me. So I called. Miriam answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm, practiced, someone who'd been in the game long enough to know how to sell hope to the desperate. When I asked about the listing, there was a long pause. Then she said quietly, "Oh, that one." She didn't give me an address. Instead, she insisted on picking me up the next morning. "You won't find it on your own," she said, and when I pressed, she added, "It's an unusual property. I should have known better." She drove a spotless white sedan, the kind you see rental agents in. Sunglasses, sharp smile. Didn't say much during the ride. We turned off the main road after only 15 minutes, but the back roads stretched on far longer than they should have. Twists and hills, no street signs, no GPS signal. Eventually, we reached a long, cracked drive that sloped down between a line of black trees. No birds, no wind, not even bugs tapping the windshield. When the house came into view, my breath caught. It was small, a pale gray cottage tucked into the edge of a clearing. Neat white shutters, a stone chimney, porch swing swaying in a breeze that didn't exist. It looked perfect, too perfect, like something out of a brochure from the 50s, frozen in time. And it pulled at me. "Why hasn't it sold?" I asked, voice low. Miriam didn't answer. She stared out the windshield, hands tight on the steering wheel. When I looked back, she was already gone. Just gone. No car. No sound of it leaving. Just me, the house, and the hum in my ears. Inside, the air was still. Not stale, just still. Everything was fully furnished. 2 bedrooms. A tidy kitchen with pale blue cabinets. A reading nook with a rocking chair that creaked once as I walked past, though I didn't touch it. I found a contract waiting on the coffee table. No price, no legalese, just a space to sign my name. And I did. I don't remember doing it, but the pen was in my hand and the ink was still wet when I looked down. The first night, I slept like I'd never slept before. The sheets were cold, the mattress firm. For the first time in months, my dreams were silent. But in the morning, I realized my phone was dead. Completely drained, and when I stepped outside, the driveway was gone. No car, no road, no black trees, just fog, and a street sign that read, "Nowhere ST." I spent hours trying to walk out of the mist. Every direction looked the same, faded grass, thick gray air, and the house always behind me no matter how far I walked. Eventually, I gave up. I sat on the porch and stared at the swing as it rocked back and forth, slow and steady, like breathing, and I started to feel watched. It didn't take long before I noticed the house was wrong. Not in the way fixer-uppers are wrong. The floors were level, the water ran clear, and the lights never flickered. But the corners were off. The ceiling didn't meet the walls quite right, and when I stared at a single point for too long, it seemed to bend, subtly but enough to make my stomach twist. The shadows moved even when the lights didn't. Doors closed behind me with no draft. And every night I'd hear something shifting beneath the floorboards, slow, rhythmic, like footsteps pacing. I tried not to think about it. I cooked, I cleaned, I rearranged the furniture. But every morning it was back in the same place. One night I woke up to the sound of someone whispering in the hallway. Not speaking, whispering inside the walls. I pressed my ear against the drywall and heard it, clear as day. You signed it. You belong now. I punched the wall. My fist went through. There was no insulation, no beams, just space, endless black space beyond the drywall. That's when I started keeping a journal. You're reading it now. If you're holding this, if this ended up in your hands, leave it, burn it. Don't keep reading, because the house knows, remembers, and it's always looking for someone new. Part 2. The guest room. The second bedroom was locked when I moved in. Not just stuck, locked. With a black keyhole like an eye watching me every time I passed in the hall. At first I figured it was storage. I'd never been one to pry. But after 3 nights of hearing scratching from the other side, soft, rhythmic, like fingernails on wood, I stopped pretending I didn't care. I tried the doorknob. It didn't budge. But the next morning it was wide open. The room was pristine. A bed made up with crisp white sheets untouched. A dresser. A single window overlooking nothing. Just gray fog pressing against the glass like breath on a mirror. On the nightstand sat an envelope. My name written in sharp cursive. I opened it. There was no letter. Just a photograph of me, sleeping in bed. That was the first night I started locking my own door. Around the 3rd week, I tried something reckless. I broke a window. I didn't plan to. I was washing the dishes and the static came back. This low-frequency hum that seemed to buzz in my teeth. It had started the day after I found the photo. It wouldn't stop, not even when I covered my ears. Something inside me just snapped. I grabbed the cast iron pan from the stove and hurled it straight through the kitchen window. Except the glass didn't break. It didn't crack. It melted around the pan, absorbing it with a slow, almost fleshy ripple. Like I'd thrown it into a pool of mercury. And when it spit the pan back out, it was changed. Warped, dented, but not from impact. From heat. From pressure. Like it had been somewhere else. Somewhere that wasn't here. That night, I heard someone knock at the door. Not the front door. The guest room. 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. Then silence. I didn't check. I didn't move. I just lay in bed, holding the sheets to my face like a child. I waited until dawn before I opened my door, and even then I waited until the second knock came again. This time, from my closet. By week 4, the house started rearranging things. Books I'd left in the living room would end up on my nightstand. Food I'd eaten would reappear in the fridge untouched. And the TV? It turned on by itself every night at 3:11 a.m. Always static. Except once. That one night, the screen flickered to a feed that looked like security camera footage. The angle was high, almost like from a ceiling corner. It was my hallway. But the walls were different. The wallpaper was peeling. The floorboards were rotting. And something was crawling toward my bedroom door. Long limbs. No face. Joints bending the wrong way. It moved slowly, so slowly, but with purpose. It stopped right outside the door and stood up. And then it turned to face the camera. I shut the TV off. The screen stayed on. The next morning, I found muddy footprints outside my bedroom. Barefoot. Long splayed toes. Not mine. They led back to the guest room, which was locked again. I wasn't alone anymore. That day, I decided to draw a map of the house. I used graph paper, measured each room, counted paces, marked the outlets and vents. and what I found made my stomach knot. There was a space between the guest room and the basement door, a room that didn't exist. No entrance, no windows, just a hollow section of the blueprint, like something was missing or hiding. I wanted answers, so I did the only thing I hadn't tried yet. I knocked on the wall 3 times, and something knocked back. Later that night, I saw her. A woman standing at the end of the hallway, dressed in 1950s housewife garb. Apron, gloves, hair perfectly curled. Her skin was wrong, gray like old wax. Her eyes were black marbles. She didn't move. She just stood there, smiling. And then I blinked and she was gone. I stopped sleeping. The guest room door is always ajar now. I don't remember unlocking it. And the photo on the nightstand? It's changed. It's me standing at the foot of the bed, smiling, just like her. Part 3, The Architect's Gift. It had been over a month, maybe 2. Time didn't work properly anymore. My watch ticked backwards some days. The kitchen clock stayed at 3:11 no matter how many batteries I swapped. My body felt tired but never sleepy. I started forgetting the names of things, simple ones, like mirror or sink or outside. I wrote everything down just in case. That's how I remembered the knock on the door. Not the guest room door this time. The front door. No one had ever knocked there. Not since Miriam dropped me off and vanished. I approached slowly, holding a kitchen knife in one hand and my breath in the other. When I opened it, there was no one there, only a thick white envelope on the welcome mat. It was sealed with wax. A symbol I didn't recognize, a spiral intersected by 3 vertical slashes. Inside was a letter, handwritten in neat blocky script. To the current occupant, you've been accepted. Make yourself comfortable. The house is adjusting. You may experience side effects. Memory loss, spatial instability, minor temporal bleed, localized hauntings. These are expected. If you require assistance, consult the mirror, the architect. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The phrase, "the house is adjusting," replayed in my head like a stuck record. Adjusting to what? To me? Or to someone else? I avoided the mirror at first, but the letter, it sat on the table like a dare. So eventually I did as it said. I went into the bathroom, turned off the light, and stared. At first it was just me. Well, gaunt. My eyes looked hollow, like something was already missing. But then, the reflection changed. Not all at once, just small details. The walls behind me became lined with different wallpaper. The light fixture warped into a brass chandelier, and my reflection smiled. I didn't, but it did. Then it whispered, "You're almost ready." I ran out of the bathroom and didn't go back for 3 days. That week, the basement door opened. No sound. No click, just wide open when I passed it one morning. I hadn't even realized it was a basement. The door had always been there, but I thought it was a closet. I had no memory of anyone mentioning stairs, but there they were. Old wooden steps descending into darkness. The smell of mold and cold metal drifted up like a warning, and painted across the wall at the top of the stairs in tall black letters. Entry granted. I couldn't stop myself. I went down. The air got colder with every step. My breath came out in mist, even though the thermostat upstairs still read 72 degrees. At the bottom, the basement looked normal. Cement floor, exposed pipes, a furnace, old paint cans stacked in the corner. But in the center of the floor, carved into the concrete, was that same spiral symbol from the letter. 3 vertical slashes through it, like it had been clawed open. And at its center was a small wooden chair, facing the wall. When I stepped toward it, I heard a voice behind me. Not whispered, not ghostly. Clear. Come. Mel. Don't sit down yet. You'll make it worse. I spun around. There was a man standing by the staircase, late 30s, balding, wore a rumpled gray button-up and mismatched socks. Looked more like a tax auditor than a ghost. He raised his hands, showing he wasn't armed. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "Name's Riley. I used to live here." We sat at the base of the stairs and talked for hours. Riley said he bought the house 6 years ago, but after only 3 weeks things started happening. Same as me, scratches, static, warping rooms. But he hadn't lasted. I got out. Or at least, part of me did, he said, rubbing his temple. "What do you mean, part?" He gave a humorless laugh. "This place doesn't let you fully leave. Pieces of you stay behind. Thoughts, habits, echoes. I think I'm one of them." I stared. "You're not real?" He shrugged. "What is anymore?" Riley warned me about the chair. "It's a listening device," he said. "Or a throne. Depends on what you believe." "Who built it?" He shook his head. "They never tell you. All I know is the deeper you get, the more you understand, and the more you lose. Names, memories, faces. You'll wake up and not know who you are." "But what's the point?" I asked. He looked me dead in the eyes. "Some houses are built to keep people in. This one was built to let something out." I left the basement shaking. The guest room door was open again. Inside, the photo had changed a third time. It showed Riley, sitting in the basement chair, eyes black, mouth sewn shut. That night, I dreamed of blueprints, endless lines and circles, angles that looped into themselves, rooms that folded like origami, hallways that stretched into stars. In the center of the plans was a name, the architect, and below it in red ink, "We are not building a house. We are constructing a threshold." Part 4, Threshold Protocol. The next day, the walls were breathing, not metaphorically. I watched the wallpaper rise and fall like lungs. They were slow, careful exhales, as if the house was meditating, waiting. I tried to ignore it at first. I spent hours trying to cook breakfast, eggs that never cracked, bacon that refused to sizzle. The stove turned on, the flame burned, but the food just sat there, cold, undone. Nothing cooked anymore. Even time didn't move right. I stared at the clock for what felt like hours, but the second hand never ticked. It was 3:11. Always. That night, I opened the basement again. Riley wasn't there, but the chair was, and something had changed. A doorway had appeared behind it, an arched frame embedded in the wall, lined with symbols that shimmered like oil slicks. There was no handle, just a smooth black surface like obsidian. The spiral symbol pulsed softly on its surface, and then a voice, low, disembodied, genderless, spoke from behind the door. "You are nearing alignment. Please remain still." I ran. Back upstairs, the guest room mirror was cracked. A single fracture from top to bottom. Behind the crack was a reflection I didn't recognize. It wasn't me. It looked like me, but its eyes were hollow. Its smile wide. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it clearly in my mind. "Accept protocol. Complete integration. Prepare for phase 2. I smashed the mirror, but the reflection stayed. It kept smiling even after the glass was gone. I packed a bag, tried to leave. The front door opened onto the sky. Not the normal kind, the wrong kind. It was a swirl of purple clouds and black stars, turning far too fast. Shapes moved behind the clouds, huge and slow, like whales swimming in ink. I closed the door. I screamed. Nothing answered. The house began to split. Not literally, but in layers. Each room I walked into felt slightly different. Not just furniture or lighting. The rules had changed. In the bathroom, gravity pulled sideways. In the kitchen, sound was muffled like underwater. In the living room, my reflection followed me without a mirror. I saw it walking beside me in the glass of picture frames and the curve of spoons. Sometimes it was behind me when I turned. The house no longer had windows, just dark panels blacker than black, like the concept of outside had been deleted. That's when I started hearing the other voices, dozens of them, speaking all at once, from inside the walls, from under the floor, from behind the TV, all saying different things, overlapping like a radio scanning through stations. He's almost there. Phase 1 complete. Prepare him for witness. He will sit. He must sit. We've been waiting since the first design. We drew the threshold in his mind. We are the house. He is the door. That last one hit me like a punch to the chest. And the door? I found Riley again 2 nights later. He was in the basement, sitting on the floor, scribbling with a red crayon on the concrete. He looked thinner, older. His eyes were bloodshot and unfocused. I asked him what was happening. I begged. He just pointed to the red spiral he'd drawn and whispered, "This place was never meant to be a home. It's a translation." "Hey, what?" He looked up, lips twitching like he couldn't form the words. Something big, something other wanted to talk. It didn't know how. So it made this place a language we could live in, a space shaped like comprehension. I backed away. He grabbed my wrist. "Don't sit in the chair. That's how it finishes you." His voice broke. I almost did. I wanted to know. I thought I could understand it. What happens if I sit? He didn't blink, didn't breathe. You become a sentence. Back upstairs, the TV was on again. Only now it wasn't static. It was me. But not now. It was a version of me older. More. Hair gray at the edges. Sitting in the basement chair. Eyes wide and glowing faint blue. He spoke directly to the camera. Directly to me. "You can't escape by running. There is no door but inward. No way out but through. The architect doesn't build exits." And then he smiled. That same awful knowing smile. "All you have to do now is choose." That night, the walls whispered in unison. Soft, hypnotic. Sit and know. Stand and forget. Choose, choose, choose. The chair is waiting. The doorway behind it pulses like a second heartbeat in the basement floor. And somewhere in the guest room, a new photograph is developing. I haven't looked yet, because deep down I know what it will show. Me, sitting in the chair, smiling. Part 5. The sitting. I didn't sleep the night after the voices began chanting. I wandered the house trying to find places that still felt real, but every room was wrong now. The fridge was filled with teeth. The faucet bled. The guest room had no floor, just an abyss where the carpet used to be. And the mirror in my bedroom showed me from behind. Every hallway was longer than it used to be. Every shadow moved when I wasn't looking. Every breath I took felt shared. The house was closing in, and the chair was calling. I waited until just after 3:11 a.m. Something about that number, it had meaning, I was sure of it. A signal, a code. I crept down into the basement. The air smelled like static. My ears buzzed. The doorway behind the chair shimmered with a dull violet light now, like a wound trying to scab over. I approached the chair slowly. I expected it to creak or shift or pulse. It didn't. Just waited, like it always had. I sat down, and the world broke. Not shattered, not exploded, just unraveled. It started with a sound. Gone. Not muffled, deleted. Like someone had ripped the audio track from reality. Then came the color. My vision drained to grayscale, then inverted, then back again. And then I was falling, but not in space, in meaning. I was sinking through layers of myself. Names, memories, shapes, concepts. I couldn't remember my parents' faces. Then I forgot my own. Then I forgot what a face was. I tried to scream, but I no longer had a mouth. Suddenly, everything stopped, like a string pulled taut, and I was standing in a white room, just white. No corners, no walls, no sky. And across from me was a man in a charcoal suit, sitting behind a drafting table. He looked ordinary, bald, clean-shaven, hands folded neatly, but his eyes were fractals, endless geometric shapes shifting inward forever. He smiled. "You've arrived," he said. His voice echoed in my bones, not my ears. I knew who he was, even before he said it. "I am the architect." He gestured to the blank space between us. It became a floor plan, sketched in red light. Not just a house, not my house, a map of consciousness, mine. Rooms labeled with emotions, hallways labeled with fears, a basement labeled buried memory, a second story labeled constructed self, and in the center, glowing, was the chair. "You are a structure," the architect said calmly. "You are foundation and facade. You are window and wall. This house did not choose you. You were the house." I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He stood and walked slowly around the table, his shoes echoing like thunder. "We do not build shelters here," he whispered. "We build languages. Every house is a sentence, every door a verb, every hallway a clause." He reached up and tapped my chest with one long finger. "And you are a question." Suddenly I was back in the chair. The house was silent, the basement empty. No more light, no more voice, just me. And a knowledge I hadn't held before. The spiral wasn't a symbol. It was a punctuation mark, a cosmic one, a sign that a thought wasn't finished yet. I stood up, and the house responded. The hallway was different now, longer but straighter. The walls breathed in time with me. My shadow walked beside me instead of behind. The reflection in the picture frame no longer lagged. It whispered, "You saw him. You heard the design. Now it begins." I returned to the guest room. The photograph had changed again. Now it showed the chair, but empty, and underneath it, scrawled in red marker, "This is where you stop being real." I checked my journal, the one I had used to track time, to remember. Pages were missing, whole days erased, and the ones that remained were written in a language I couldn't read. Symbols, spirals, vertical slashes, and next to every date, alignment stable. I walked to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. The crack was gone, but so was my reflection. In its place stood the architect, smiling, and he said, "Now you can build." Part 6. Floor Plans of the Mind. I stopped using my name 3 days ago, not because I forgot it, because it stopped making sense. Names are designations, markers for shape, form, purpose. But once you become the structure, you don't need a label. You just are. I still eat. I still breathe. But it feels like ritual now, mimicry, a performance for the parts of me that still think they're human. I wake each morning, but not because I slept. Time passes, but not forward. Not backward either. Just around. Like I'm circling myself. Like a hallway with no doors. The house shifts nightly now. Not subtly, intentionally. Walls change places. Rooms become copies of each other. One night, the kitchen stretched endlessly with stoves on every wall. The next, it was a single black table in the center of a white void. I opened a cabinet once and saw a version of myself inside, hunched, pale, biting into raw drywall with bleeding teeth. He didn't look up. I closed it. That version of me never came out. I've begun seeing others. Echoes, prototypes, past tenants, failed integrations. One stands in the hallway every night at 3:11, eyes sewn shut, hands folded like prayer. Another scrawls blueprints in blood across the ceiling, whispering formulas no one taught him. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see Riley. Only it's not Riley anymore. He doesn't speak. He just twitches, like a stop-motion puppet strung on bad intention. He watches me with empty sockets, waiting, maybe for me to finish what he started. There's a room I call the atrium now. It didn't exist before I sat in the chair. It's massive, bigger than the house could possibly allow. Glass ceiling, no sky, floating architecture turning on invisible axes, staircases that lead to nowhere, balconies that overlook blackness, fragments of other houses, Victorian arches, brutalist concrete, sliding shoji panels, stitched together like Frankenstein's blueprint. This isn't just my mind anymore. It's a network, a place made of thoughts, not mine alone. In the center of the atrium is the heart column. It pulses, slowly, deeply, like the sound of thunder under skin. I've never touched it. I don't think I should. But sometimes when I get too close, I hear voices that aren't mine. There are 431 integrations complete. Language 07 is corrupt, rewriting. Memory cluster alpha experiencing bleed. Entity number 011 has reached structural harmony. House will expand. That last one always freezes me. House will expand. Into what? Into who? I found a panel yesterday behind the furnace. Metal. Warm to the touch. It opened like a flower, revealing rows of pulsating lights, red, orange, blue, arranged in constellations. A single switch in the center labeled Override Self. I didn't touch it, but I wanted to. Every day I lose more. Memories evaporate the moment I recall them. I tried writing again. The pen sank into the paper like ink on water, leaving no trace. Words won't stay where I put them. Only symbols remain. The spiral, the slashes, the circle broken by a single gap, the open doorway. That one haunts me most. I found a photo album on the dining table this morning. I didn't put it there. Inside were pictures I don't remember taking. Me standing in a forest of black trees. Me talking to Miriam, who now has no face. Me sitting in a chair, but not the chair. This one made of bone, overlooking an ocean of screaming mouths. The last page was blank, except for the words, "You will be remembered as a function." That night I stood in front of the mirror again. Still no reflection, but the architect's voice returned. "You are progressing well. Soon you will no longer interpret. You will generate." I asked, "Generate what?" He didn't respond, but my mouth moved on its own. Dreams? Dreams for what, I don't know. But I've started having them again. Except they don't belong to me. I dream of places I've never been. A cave filled with golden antlers breathing in sync. A city with no people, only statues weeping blood. A field where the stars fall like snow, and each flake whispers a name I've never heard. The house is no longer silent. It hums now. It thinks. I think with it. The chair has vanished. In its place is a hole in the floor, pulsing with blue light. I hear the heartbeat of the heart column even up here now. I think it's growing, or spreading. And I know, deep down, that the house has no real foundation. Not in dirt, not in stone. It's rooted in minds, and now it's rooted in mine. Part 7, The Becoming. There are no doors anymore, just passages. They don't lead anywhere physical, only inward. Some take me to long, coiling corridors lined with mirrors that show versions of myself I haven't been yet. Others open into chambers made of pulse and thought, where the ceiling is memory and the floor hums with names I've forgotten. The house is not a building, not even a mind. It's a conversion mechanism, and I am mid-process. I see Riley sometimes. What's left of him? He crawls along the edges of the house like a discarded sentence, twitching, rewriting himself in loops. He chants syllables I can't translate. Not yet. I think he's warning me, or maybe begging. But I can't tell where he ends and the house begins, or if he ever ended at all. The atrium is different now. The floating fragments of architecture have started rotating. Faster. Synchronized. The blueprints on the walls pulse like living organs. They update in real time. Sometimes I can't look directly at them without feeling like my bones are being redrafted. There are doors inside me now, not metaphorical ones, actual doors. I can feel them opening and closing with every thought. Some of them aren't mine. The architect speaks more often, but never to me, not directly. He speaks through me. My mouth moves in my sleep. My fingers twitch across surfaces, drawing spirals and condensation and blood. Sometimes I wake up mid-sentence, scrawling words I don't understand in ash or soap or dust. One phrase repeats again and again. You are the seventh structure. I don't know what that means, but part of me does. That part is no longer afraid. That part is starting to enjoy this. I remember a night, I think it was night, when the ceiling split open, and I saw the sky above the house for the first time in weeks. But it wasn't the sky. It was something looking in, vast and symmetrical. Its surface shimmered like a neural network made of glass and rain, and from within it, 1,000 tiny mouths whispered in harmony. The frame is viable. The form is functional. Proceed to integration. Then the floor gave out, and I fell, not down, inward, through layers of consciousness like stacked blueprints, through every fear I'd ever hidden, through every lie I'd ever told myself, through every truth I was never meant to see. I landed in a room made of my own memories, except they weren't right. My childhood bedroom was missing the window. My mother's face was smooth and blank like wet clay. My graduation photo was upside down, and I was smiling with too many teeth. This wasn't memory. It was replication. The house was building me from scratch, piece by piece, trying to recreate what it had already absorbed, but better, sharper, more useful. There was a mirror in that room, shattered. Each shard reflected a version of me. In one I was made of ink, in another bone, in another nothing but code and static. Only one shard showed my human face, cracked, fading. I touched it, and it melted into my skin. That's when I saw it, the blueprint, not on the wall this time, in my head. It's a recursive structure, self-generating, self-learning, a grammar system encoded in space, emotion, and trauma. The architect wasn't building a house. He was writing a language made of people, of me. The house is not haunted. It is haunting, a verb, a process, and I am now a part of its syntax. When I woke, I wasn't in my bed. I was in a room with no walls, no floor, no ceiling, just light and symbols. They moved when I thought. They rearranged themselves in response to my intent. I could feel something, someone downloading into me. Not a possession, a blueprint, a role, a title. I asked aloud, "What am I?" The architect responded. His voice came not from the air, but from my own spine. "You are the threshold. You are the door through which the others will come." Now I understand. I was never a victim. I was chosen, not by luck, not by fate, by design. Every crack in the wall, every whisper, Every reflection, it was preparing me, not to destroy me, but to transmit through me. I'm no longer a man. I am a structure of translation. I am where thought becomes form. I am where they will arrive. And the house is only the first word in a sentence that will echo forever. Part 8. The door that speaks. I no longer count days. Time here is a breath, inhaling new thoughts, exhaling old names. The house doesn't shift anymore. It has settled, not because it stopped changing, but because I understand its logic now. The way language stops being strange once you speak it fluently. The way a nightmare loses fear when you become the dreamer. I walk the halls not as a tenant, but as syntax. My footsteps echo in perfect rhythm, 3 beats and a pause. Just like the spiral, just like the slashes. The house is not a place anymore. It is a sentence. I am its first word. The architect no longer speaks. He listens now. He listens through me. I feel him behind my eyes, parsing every emotion I experience like punctuation marks. Fear becomes ellipses. Memory becomes parentheses. Pain becomes exclamation. And silence? Silence is the period. Sometimes I see the others. Not Riley, not anymore. These are new ones. Fresh voices echoing into the structure. A girl who vanished on a hiking trail in Oregon. A man who disappeared from a bus station in Minsk. A boy whose screams never made it out of the well. All of them are pieces now. Letters in a word none of us were ever meant to pronounce. But the house is hungry for more. Its grammar is incomplete. The sentence isn't finished. Not yet. That's why I'm writing this. Or why something in me is, this journal is no longer for me. It's for you. Yes, you. Reading this, listening, watching, wondering. You think you're safe because you're not here. But the house isn't limited to walls and wood. The house is idea, a living, replicating thought form. And like all contagious ideas, it spreads by story. Did you hear about the man who bought a house that didn't exist? Did you wonder what was behind the locked guest room? Did you feel the static when I mentioned the mirror? Did you flinch when the reflection smiled? That's the first sign. You're being structured. It starts slow. Little changes. Things where they shouldn't be. Dreams you don't remember having. Mirrors that don't quite reflect right. Rooms that seem bigger than they used to be. And then, someday soon you'll see it. The flyer. A house for sale. No address. Just a number. Just a name. And when you call, when you go, there will be a chair, and a room, and a door, and maybe you'll sit, just to see what happens, just to understand. And then you will begin. You'll write. You'll remember. You'll become part of the story, and someone else will read your words, and the sentence will continue, because the house never ends. It only translates. Welcome to Nowhere Street. We've been waiting for you.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.